Okay. Dr. Pervais Amir, thank you so much for speaking with us. What are your motivations for attending this conference?
Well, I think they are twofold. I'm here with perhaps the largest entourage of people participating. We brought in about 20 middle level to senior level Pakistani professionals, and I am here as their mentor. So we found this as a major opportunity for them to be exposed to the area of community-based adaptation. Personally, I'm very much engaged in setting up Pakistan's policies for adaptation. So this provides me a slightly different perspective of how to move from the policy level and to the ground level. So I think there's a lot of experience sharing and there's a lot of exposure being made available at this particular conference.
And lots of the people here are very keen that this perspective, community-based adaptation, is taken on board by governments at the policy level. Do you see that happening?
I think it's going to take its time, but climate change is unfolding much faster than we were earlier predicting, So particularly for South Asia, so this is the end product, this is where the action should be and this is where the results are. So I think the sooner the governments bridge this particular gap in their being focused more on policy and moving down to these communities which are eventually going to be impacted by that, I think that's the direction to take and that's where success is going to be seen.
And what have been the highlights of the conference for you so far?
I think while we didn't attend the field trip for some reasons, but the meetings, I think what they're trying to focus is on three areas. They're A, sharing experiences worldwide. It's not only from Asia, it's people coming from worldwide. And B, to me the highlights are that there are a lot of opportunities available by which you can fast track this issue. And by sharing this, just by the growth of this conference, it started 6 years back, started with 12 people, now it's about 300. And I think about the next time when we have it, maybe it will raise to a larger number. This community-based adaptation has to be in thousands. The experience has to be in terms of how many thousands villages, how many thousands communities are you attending with. So this is just the start for me, and I think this is providing that particular framework. And the differences in the approaches and frameworks which are being utilized for this community-based adaptation, that allows for a lot of innovation.
And you've mentioned some of the approaches and frameworks and the projects that are and initiatives that are being implemented. What have been the most exciting that you've come across?
I think the ones there, one coming out of Bangladesh on the sea rise part, that's something which is exciting to me. There are other experiences which Belize gave a presentation today. I found that to be quite exciting, And while it has to look more at the economics. I mean, this approach, when you do it on a large scale with thousands of villages, really what is the economic cost as well as the economic value of that output? That's really going to be the determinant of how successful this approach is going to be.
And other than economics, what do you see as the other big challenges for implementing this in the field?
I think one of the challenges is going to be the social harmony. It's relatively easier to implement this approach when the communities are harmonious. They're homogeneous in terms of their grouping. There's not too much ethnic or other strifes or conflicts. But when you have a village, an area where you have 8 or different types of ethnicity in that particular village, there you're going to start facing a little problem with this type of approach. So I think what you need to do is you need to have enough flexibility to enable people to find their own waters as they go out and implement these approaches. It cannot be a sensu stricto approach that, okay, these are the main guidelines, you can only use this. It varies by environment, it varies by culture, it varies by the situation and by the terrain. In certain terrains it would be very difficult, communities are so far spread apart that it's difficult to sort of get them together. So a lot of opportunity for innovation and still a lot of opportunity for more research in this particular area.
I'm curious, could you elaborate a little bit on some of those challenges you mentioned about communities that aren't harmonious? How could you see that playing out, that difficulty?
I think what you do there is that communities which are not homogeneous, there you need to tailor your approach according to, let's say there are 5 different groups within one particular village or one particular community. There it will vary. If the groups might be according to their ethnicity, the groups might be, there are certain societies which disaggregate women and men, So there you cannot just say that this is the community-based approach. There you have to have people who are separately talking to the women, there are people who are separately talking to the men. Same goes for educating a large number of people would be the children. It's extremely important this approach gets modified and you try to bring the children into the mainstream. They are the ones which will face the full-blown impacts of climate change. In our generation, in our times, maybe in 20 years, we might not see the full-blown effects. But as the century progresses, temperatures go from 4 to 6 degrees. These are the younger generation which are the ones which are really going to have to be prepared to fight climate change.
And you've mentioned the trends over the last 6 of these conferences. Where do you see us going? What's your vision for the future of community-based adaptation?
I think it has a future as a new approach into the development kit. It needs to be made much more flexible, and I think the format of the conference would be much more better that if you had fewer presentations but much more interactive discussion. You can divide, even if you have 400 people in there, they all don't need to sit in these groups. You need to have it much more interactive, and I think you get much more out of it. Secondly, I think the quality of the papers in future should focus more on the lessons learned. There is an opportunity to describe the project, spend a lot of time there, but what's more important is that what are the experience and how broadly can we share that. The thing which was unique for me was the communication tools which were sort of debated and discussed here. I mean, this new social media, the better ways to approach a large audience, illiterate audience, that's important, and that's sort of an emerging science where we need to do much more on that.
Thank you very much. It's been fascinating talking to you.